Good evening, I'm David Brown, and this is the Northern Sun Experience. 7 teams, 5 schools, and one incredible basketball weekend are on the horizon for the NSIC as regional play starts in the NCAA Division II tournaments. After winning the conference tournament last week, Augustana's men's basketball team seemed to secure its place as the Central Region's host. Sunday night, the team gathered at Buffalo Wild Wings in Sioux Falls to hear its name officially called as number 1. Here are the sights, the sounds, and reactions from the top-seeded Vikings.
It's been a dream come true. I mean, we put all the time and the effort, and it's all us. I mean, it's our coaches. They come ready to go every time. It's the guys. I mean, we worked our butts off this summer to get ready to this point, and we've just been playing outstanding this year.
It's really exciting. We have some of the best fans in the whole nation, so we're excited about that. Should be a great advantage for us going forward. So we're going to use it. We're excited. We'll see what happens.
Deep down, I felt pretty confident that we were going to be able to host it due to the fact we're number 1 in the region, and I know our administrators did a great job of putting forth a very good bid. But until you see it, you still a little bit of doubt there, and you're just kind of hoping and praying that it happens.
We're pumped up for it. I mean, last year was a disappointment. Missing out and having the year that we did with high expectations. We really feel like we came back and we learned from last year, and we came out with a vengeance. So we're definitely not going to let anything slide.
The way we can score is so great. We can shoot. We have great shooters, like you mentioned. Me and Casey do a great job on the block, and I think we share the ball really well. And because of that, we get good open looks that fall for us right now.
We definitely talk all the time about playing inside out and getting it going down low before we start bombing threes. We really feel like we have some great posts, and we got some great shooters out there too. But, it's just taking easier shots than harder shots.
Practice has been unique for me because we're not very deep, and our guys practice every rep. And I like practice. I enjoy practice. I don't know if they do, but I love it. So we tend to practice hard, and I have actually this year probably practiced the least amount of minutes or hours that I have maybe in my career. But we go hard, it's just we aren't going nearly as long.
Every guy on this team has their role, and everybody bought in. Last year we had some guys that wanted to go on their own agenda, and you just can't have it. You got to have everybody that wants to buy in for one purpose, and that's what we got this year.
The best thing might have been losing to Winona. I think we hated that loss to Winona so much that our guys said, we're not going to let that happen again. We don't want that feeling again, and I think we kind of recollected ourselves. Maybe we needed that just to get ourselves back to earth a little bit, and I thought we just played a very workman, blue-collar type 4 games in the tournament. I think if we continue to play one at a time and do the things we do well, we'll be fine in this tournament as well.
Augustana will host the Central Region at the Sanford Pentagon and compete with 3 other NSIC teams. And when we come back, Jordan Dalton breaks down that men's regional and tells you who might be the sleeper in the mix.
The Northern Sun Experience on Midco Sports Network is presented by CU Mortgage Direct LLC, Sanford Health, and Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back to the Northern Sun Experience, run by former Augustana point guard Jordan Dalton. I know it's going to be hard to be objective as an alum, but there's really no denying your alma mater success.
I'll do my best to be as objective as I can. How about that?
Well, we'll see if you can live up to what you said. But let's take a look actually at the matchups in the Central Region. 4 NSIC teams in the bracket, and they're all in different matchups. Number 1, Augie at 30-2, taking on the 8-seed Arkansas Tech, an 18-13 school from the Great American Conference. They'll take on the winner of number 4 Northwest Missouri State from the Mid-American Intercollegiate Athletics Association against the 5-seed Minnesota State Mankato. Number 2 seed is Minnesota State Moorhead taking on Pittsburgh State, the 7th seed from the MIAA. And then finally Central Missouri, the defending D2 champions, are the 3 seed taking on 6-seeded Northern State. So Jordan, we very well could have an all NSIC Final 4 in that region. And we could get a rematch of the NSIC Conference Championship game, but let's just start with Augustana as a team. Number 1, as I mentioned, what does that mean just for the school and for the program in general?
I think it's great. As we joked earlier, I might be a little biased in this, but I think Augie has one of the greatest and most loyal fan bases in the country. And so there were some thin years there, especially when Coach Billiter first came into the program. And I think it's just a testament of the work and the due diligence that Coach Billiter and his staff has put together. And so to reward the Augustana community with such a great team, they support those guys through thick and thin. and it's been great to see, how well they've done. Not only this year, but also the future to look forward to next year. They don't have a senior on the roster. And so it's one of those things that it gives the program a tremendous amount of momentum.
Well, they're going to play all these games at the Sanford Pentagon. I know it's not technically their home because Sioux Falls Arena is their home, but they just won the conference championship there. Is there something to be said for the familiarity going into such a high-impact, high-stress tournament?
I definitely think so. I think they've played, 5 games at the Pentagon this year and won all 5 of them. And so it's more of a familiarity thing than anything. And not only that, but they don't have to leave Sioux Falls. And so you don't have to worry about travel. You don't have to worry about staying in a hotel and sleep patterns. You don't have to worry about going to a restaurant and eating out every day. You can just go through your same normal routine. We talked about that the entire season. Athletes are creatures of habit, and so the fact that they're able to sleep in their own beds, the fact that they, are familiar with the Pentagon and the baskets there and the setup there, it just creates a lot of familiarity, and so you can just play as comfortable and free as you normally do.
Now, even though Augustana won the conference tournament, they got tested in their last 3 games against Minnesota Duluth, then probably the most physical game they played all year in the semifinals against Northern State, and then another battle with Minnesota State Moorhead. So will that conference tournament run and being tested so heavily benefit Augustana?
Oh, I definitely believe so. When you look at the semifinal game against Northern State and the final game versus Minnesota State Moorhead, I don't think they'll play too tough of games even in the regional. That Northern State game, they needed overtime to win, and it was such an extremely physical game. And they have to be tested like that. And they've proven that they can win in both ways, because then you transition to the next night in the championship game against Moorhead, and it's a shootout. So there's 2 very contrasting styles, and they've shown that they can win in both styles. And when you talk about the championship game versus Moorhead, Dan Jansen didn't have 1 point in the first half. Obviously comes out on a tear in the second half, ends up with 21 points. But Al Richter is a guy who's a first-team all-conference player that nobody seems to talk about. He absolutely carried them in that first half, and that's what Augustana is. They're a team with a 3-headed monster of Jansen, Schilling, and Richter, who any of them can go off for 20 a night. And so it's very, very difficult to game plan against one, because it seems like if you take one away, the other 2 step up. And that's not even mentioning Zach Houston coming off the bench or freshman of the year Jordan Spencer either. So they have so many weapons, and they're so deep as far as who can score. It's going to be very, very difficult to knock them out of the regional.
Well, let's talk about the runner-up in that championship, Minnesota State Moorhead, the clear number 2 seed in the region. Obviously, they're eyeing a rematch and a 3rd meeting with Augustana. Is that enough motivation for the Dragons, or do they need to take some lessons from those Augie games, both in the conference tournament and earlier this year, and learn something from them?
Oh, I think there were 2 very similar games as far as their regular season matchup with Augie and then the conference championship, and the fact that they stuck with Augie for the first 35, 36 minutes of the game and just didn't have enough steam to pull out the win. What I love about Minnesota State Moorhead is Jordan Reefer. That guy never gets rattled. He's a great senior point guard, one of the most poised point guards I've seen play this year at any level. He never changes his demeanor. He has a 3.7 assist-to-turnover ratio, so he just makes great decisions with the basketball. Not only that, but he shoots above 50% from the three-point line, so anytime he has the ball in his hands, he's a scoring threat. And so I just think when you have that type of calm and steady influence at the head of your offense, it's a trickle-down effect. And so it's tough not to have confidence when he has the ball in his hands, because every time he shoots it, you think it's going in, and every time he makes a pass, it seems to lead to something good. And so I think with him being the foundation of their team, they're going to be very tough and looking to make a deep run in the regional tournament here.
Well, if not for Reaver's buzzer beater in the semifinals against Minnesota State Mankato might have been in the championship. They're the 5 seed right now. Knowing the Mavs, you got to think they're probably upset with that low seed. Can that fuel them, and could they possibly be the sleeper in this region?
Yeah, once again, anytime we talk about Minnesota State Mankato, it's tough to call them a sleeper with how talented they are. They have just as good a shot as anybody else to win this regional tournament. What has really hurt them in the past is Asa Marai tends to pick up 2 early fouls in the first half. And so he
never agrees with his fouls anyway.
Well, I don't think as a basketball player anybody's ever committed a foul. and so when you take a player who can get you 20 and 10 off the court, it completely changes the dynamic of your offense. So I think for them to have success, number one, he's going to have to stay out of foul trouble in the early part of the first half so he can actually play extended minutes. And then number two, you just talked about it. They have to have a better mental toughness. As they're battling through the game and you get calls you don't necessarily agree with or something like that happens, they have to have the ability just to move on and play the game because you can't let the referees or how many shots you're getting or anything like that distract you from doing your job and helping your team win the basketball game.
Well, then lastly, let's talk about Northern State. They moved up to the 6th seed. They struggled down the stretch, but in that semifinal against Augie, they nearly pulled it out in overtime. That had to make an impression on the selection committee. So what do you think of the Wolves heading into this tournament?
They're a great physical team who will not back down from anybody. Anybody who beats them in this regional tournament better be ready for a fight. And that's just kind of how they play. That's their style, and that's their team's MO. And it was great to see them in that semifinal game. Like I said, it takes Augie overtime to win. Now, they don't play a guy in their top 7 rotation above 6'7". And so for them to have some success, they're going to have to figure out how to defend the post. They did a great job of putting an extreme amount of ball pressure on Augie, not letting them get the ball into the post. And so they're going to have to continue that type of style to just make it an ugly, knockdown, brawl-out game every time they play.
All right, well, when we come back, we're going to look at the women's teams in the Central region. The NSIC actually snuck in a 3rd team. We'll break it all down next.
The Northern Sun Experience on Midco Sports Network is presented by CU Mortgage Direct LLC, Sanford Health, and Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back to the Northern Sun Experience, joined once again by Jordan Dalton. Jordan, let's look at the women's Central Region matchups in the Division II tournament. NSIC actually got 3 teams into the field of 8. We know of 2. We thought that Northern State and Wayne State would get in, and they did. But number 8, Minnesota State, they'll take on the top seed Fort Hays State out of Kansas in the MIAA. Then the other NSIC matchups include 4th-seeded Wayne State against number 5 Harding out of the GAC, and number 6 Northern State taking on Pittsburgh State from the MIAA. Let's start with Wayne State. They're the 4th seed, but let's be blunt. They were dominated in the NSIC championship from a defensive standpoint by Northern State. So how do the Wildcats regroup for the Central Region tournament?
Well, one thing that's nice is they've had a nice long week of practice to prepare, and to really just forget about that Northern State game. I think they just ran up against a buzzsaw in Northern State. And one thing that was evident is how frustrated they became. You know, once again, Northern State is going to make you – they play such suffocating defense from three-point line in. They're going to make you take tough contested jump shots. And I thought Wayne State just didn't have the type of composure to win that basketball game. But once again, that's a game in the past. You know, Wayne State's a team who's won 18 out of the last 20 anyway. And so they're still a great basketball team. And when you look at the makeup of their team, they have great athletic bigs, and you have to run the floor and get easy buckets in transition. I think for them to have some success in this tournament, what they're going to have to do is really buckle down and be extremely active on the defensive end. Because if you're active on the defensive end, number one, you get deflections and you get turnovers. And you can turn those turnovers into points on the offensive end. And number two, we talked about them getting out of transition. The first part of transition, getting stops and clean rebounds. And once again, they have great athletic bigs and wings who can really run the floor. But if you don't get stops and clean rebounds, it doesn't make any difference. And so I think they just have to regroup, gain their composure. And even when they're not getting the shots that they're normally getting, still have that type of composure to calm down, be patient on the offensive end, and stick within their game plan.
Well, you predicted it would be an NSIC championship with Northern State and Wayne State. You thought Wayne would win. I think most people did, but Northern State definitely surprised some people. The defense wasn't surprising, though. They had their best performance of the season. They held Wayne to 45 points. Wolves had the best defense statistically since the NSIC went to 16 teams. But another component of that championship game, they showed some outside shooting. They're dead last in the NSIC in three-point shooting, but they shot the rock pretty well in that game. Can that maybe fuel Northern State into the Central region?
Well, I think that was more an anomaly than anything because that's not their calling card. But you talked about it before. They were clicking on all levels on the defensive end. Once again, they play what's called pack line defense. And so from the three-point line in, they make things extremely, extremely difficult. Everybody's moving on a string. Everybody's in the help side. Everybody's talking. And so when you have that type of tough-nosed defense, it forces teams to take tough contested jump shots. And when teams have taken tough contested jump shots, they're not comfortable, and those are tough shots to make. And so I was very impressed on how well they communicated and how well they moved as a team. I think if they're going to have some success in this tournament, though, I think one of the keys is Megan Muchler. She was great at creating her own shot, and we talked about it. You know what you're going to get from Rachel Krogman. She's going to get you a double-double just about every time she steps on the court. But we talked about earlier in the season how Northern State struggles to score when the shot clock's under 10 seconds because they don't have a player who can just go get a bucket. And Mutzler showed that she's athletic enough to get into the paint. She can distribute to others. She can finish. She can get to the free throw line. So I think she's going to be the key to them having a deep run in the regional tournament.
Northern State, the NSIC champions for the very first time. I talked with Kurt Fredrickson, their head coach, before that championship game, and he admitted, we're not here to entertain people. It might not be the sexiest style of play, but they get it done, don't they?
And when you win basketball games, everything else is irrelevant. Nobody asks how you did it. As long as you got the W, nobody really cares. And you talked about their style of play may not be, phenomenal to watch. To some people, it's not going to be a 70 or 80-point game. But at the end of the day, if they can get a win, they could care less.
Absolutely. Well, finally, Minnesota State sneaks in as the 8th seed. They played well against Northern in the NSIC semifinals, only losing by 6. I know they're sort of a Cinderella darling. Didn't really expect. They were kind of in that 8 spot for a couple weeks. They do get in, so can the Mavs pull an upset in round 1?
I think they are just as talented as anybody else in the region. Their big thing is they can't turn the basketball over. They're a great offensive team when they play efficiently on the offensive end. And so they move the ball well. They have a lot of scoring options. They play in an up-tempo style of play, so they can get 73, 74 points a game on a consistent basis, but they just can't turn the basketball over. And I think if they're going to have some success and have this upset, they're going to, number one, have to shoot the ball very well from the outside. Number two, just don't turn the basketball over. Don't give the other team more opportunities to beat you. You can't shoot yourself in the foot when you're trying to play spoiler.
Well, we'll look forward to what happens in these regional tournaments next week. We could be talking about a couple NSIC teams going to the Elite Eight. Jordan
Let's
Dalton,
hope so.
Absolutely. Jordan Dalton, thank you very much. Well, when we come back, we were just talking about the Mavericks. Under the Northern Sun is about Minnesota State.
The Northern Sun Experience on Midco Sports Network is presented by CU Mortgage Direct LLC, Sanford Health, and Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back to the Northern Sun Experience. It's time once again for Under the Northern Sun, where we shine the spotlight on one of our member schools. Tonight, student athletes from Minnesota State University and Mankato tell you why they decided to become Mavericks.
Welcome to Minnesota State.
Welcome to Minnesota State.
Welcome to Minnesota State. Being a Maverick is so awesome because we get to play the sports we love and go to school and be college students at the same time.
Minnesota State has over 150 undergraduate degree options,
including 16 pre-professional programs and 82 graduate programs.
Minnesota State is the largest school in the state university system in Minnesota.
Our student athletes compete in the best conference against the best student athletes.
The second largest university in the state with an enrollment of over 15,000, Minnesota State students are served by 600 full-time faculty members, creating a 28-to-1 student-to-faculty ratio.
Mavericks will win the draw. Stern with the right to score!
At Minnesota State, we have 20 sports.
All of our teams are top-notch.
MSU is such a competitive school when it comes to all their sports.
My drive and my passion for my sport and in the classroom make me a successful Maverick.
To be part of a program that has not one, not two, but several #1 teams in the nation is really something to be proud of, and it's a blessing to be here.
We always push each other inside the classroom and outside the classroom, obviously on the court.
Being a Maverick is an honor. It means that you're a champion. It means you like to win.
You're part of a family, all working towards the same goal. Whether it's in the classroom, in your personal life, or on the track, on the football field, on the soccer pitch, whatever. We just make good habits to try and win.
Our coaches here at Minnesota State really work with us not only to make us better athletes, but better people. We learn life lessons in addition to learning how to be exceptional athletes.
The culture of athletics here at Mankato is a very fun, a very vibrant culture. I can say that we all support each other as athletes, no matter if you're at football, if you play soccer, or if you're baseball. We all go to the games and support each other day after day, week after week, and so I really appreciate what we have here at MNSU.
Facilities here are absolutely amazing. I took the one visit, and I think that goes along with every athlete here. You take the one visit and you're just stunned by everything that we have to offer here.
We have success here as a program because we're willing to get up every day, no matter if we're tired, no matter how hard we work, no matter what we endure, and we give it our all 110%.
We are willing to work for each other. We're willing to work hard to help push each other to be the best that we can be as a team.
We never stop, and we always go for the top.
Mavericks are just cooler than all the other mascots.
My name is Krista Hassing.
Connor McCallum, David Purcell,
And Marina Paul,
Coley Reese,
Morgan Stampley,
And I am a Maverick.
I am a Maverick.
I'm a Maverick.
I am a Maverick.
I'm a Maverick.
I am a Maverick.
I'm a Maverick.
and I'm a Maverick.
When we come back, it's not just hoops on the docket this weekend. A preview and schedule of multiple championship events is next.
The Northern Sun Experience on Midco Sports Network is presented by CU Mortgage Direct LLC, Sanford Health, and Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back to the Northern Sun Experience. Let's get you set for this weekend with a look ahead to what's starting on Friday, March 13th. In Birmingham, Alabama, we have the NCAA Division II Indoor Track and Field Championships. 69 NSIC athletes across 13 schools will compete in both the men's and women's events. The University of Sioux Falls leads the way with 10 total athletes competing. Also starting on March 13th, the NCAA National Wrestling Championships in St. Louis, Missouri. 17 Northern Sun wrestlers from 9 different weight classes will vie for individual titles. St. Cloud State leads the way there with 6 wrestlers competing in the Show Me State. And of course, the big dance for Division II basketball kicks off Friday as well. The Women's Central Regional is in Hays, Kansas, with Wayne State, Northern State, and Minnesota State all looking to pull upsets to get into the Elite Eight. Meanwhile, the Men's Regional will start right here in Sioux Falls on Saturday the 14th at the Sanford Pentagon with 4 NSIC schools competing. We'll recap it all next week on another Northern Sun Experience.